Thanksgiving used to be my favorite holiday when I was a kid. Back then, before I understood what favoritism meant, before my sister Natalie learned she could destroy anything and I'd be blamed for standing too close, before my parents turned every family gathering into a stage where I was the punchline and she was the princess. I'm 30 now, but walking into their house that afternoon felt like stepping straight back into those childhood traps, creaking floors, burnt yeast rolls, and that same sick feeling sitting in my ribs. I held a store-bought pie in one hand and a tote bag full of things my mom had assigned me to bring. Natalie wasn't assigned anything, of course. According to Mom, she works hard, sweetheart. She's too fragile for errands. Natalie was 27 and worked part-time at a boutique where she mostly took selfies, but my parents treated her like she was running NASA single-handedly. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. The door wasn't even fully open before Mom looked me up and down, lips tight. You're late. I'm 10 minutes early, I said softly. She snatched the pie out of my hands like it offended her. Your cousin Paige is already here. Your sister has been helping for hours. You know, it wouldn't kill you to put in a little effort for once. Natalie appeared behind her wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my rent. Oh my God, she groaned. You brought a grocery store pie? You couldn't at least pretend you care? I swallowed the heat rising in my face. You told me to bring a pie, so I brought a pie. Natalie rolled her eyes dramatically and walked away, and Mom muttered under her breath, always doing the bare minimum. I stepped inside, already feeling smaller. My dad was in the living room watching football with uncles and cousins. When he saw me, he nodded, but it wasn't a greeting. It was more like he was checking attendance. Every Thanksgiving, my family acted like I wasn't fully part of them, like I was a guest whose presence they tolerated because the alternative was explaining why they threw away their eldest daughter. I had a stable job, my own apartment, and responsibilities, but to them, I was just the person they expected to bail Natalie out every time she made another irresponsible choice. Around 4 o'clock, the house was full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors who always invited themselves because my mom loved pretending our family was one big, wholesome Thanksgiving painting. She always saved the ugliest moments for when she had the biggest audience. Natalie strutted around the dining room telling everyone about her new opportunity, which was apparently some influencer program that required her to attend networking lunches. She spoke like she was the next Oprah, but forgot commas existed. Mom hovered behind her, nodding proudly. Then Dad walked in, holding his beer, and said loud enough for half the room to hear, "So, honey, did you talk to your sister about the rent yet?" I froze. The conversations around me softened. I could feel eyes shift toward me. Natalie twirled her hair. "Yeah, she hasn't sent anything. I told her you'd handle it." My stomach dropped. "Wait, what?" Mom stepped forward, eyes narrow. "Natalie's rent is due tomorrow. You know that." "No," I said carefully. "I don't know that. She never told me she needed help this month." Dad frowned at me like I was being stupid on purpose. "Every month is the same, Erica." I blinked. "No, it's not. You said I only needed to help during emergencies." Mom cut me off sharply. "This is an emergency. Your sister is building her career. She doesn't need stress like this." Natalie looked at me with fake innocence. "I just assumed you'd help. You make more than I do." "I make more because I work full-time," I said. "You work 15 hours a week." A wave of silence hit the room. Mom's eyebrows shot up so fast I thought they might fly off her face. "How dare you talk to your sister that way at Thanksgiving?" "I didn't say anything wrong," I whispered. Dad stood from his chair, slow and deliberate, like he was preparing to teach a lesson he had taught me many times as a kid. "You always ruin holidays with your attitude. Just do what family does and help your sister." "I help her all the time," I said. "She never helps me back." Natalie let out a dramatic gasp. "Wow. So you're attacking me now?" I tried to speak, but my voice stuck in my throat. I wasn't attacking. I was drowning. Mom stepped closer, her voice sharpened. "Erica, you will pay her rent, today." I steadied my breath. "I'm sorry, I can't. I have my own bills. My car insurance just—" Dad moved fast. He grabbed my arm and yanked me forward, the room spinning for a second. My cousins went dead silent. Chairs scraped. Someone gasped. He hissed through his teeth. Pay! Her! Rent! I can't, I said, shaking now. I don't have enough this month. He shoved me backward, hard. I hit the edge of the wall near the kitchen doorway, the impact shooting pain through my shoulder. Mom's face twisted into something feral. I am done with you embarrassing this family! She slapped me across the face. The sound cracked through the dining room like a plate breaking. I tasted metal. My cheek went numb. People stood frozen, forks midair. Someone whispered, "Is she serious?" But Mom wasn't done. She grabbed my wrist and shook it. "You pay your sister's rent or get out of my house." Natalie folded her arms smugly, like she was watching her favorite TV episode. Dad raised his voice again. "Ungrateful brat, after everything we've done for you." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet internal click, like a lock changing. Positions. A shift from fear to clarity. My voice was steady when I finally said, "Let go of me." Mom scoffed. "Or what?" I looked around the room, at the witnesses, the people they cared about impressing, the ones who saw everything now, the hitting, the screaming, the humiliation. Every Thanksgiving of my life flashed inside me. Years of being shoved aside, blamed, ridiculed, used, dismissed, and kicked down so Natalie could shine. And now they were willing to beat me in front of everyone because I refused to financially support the princess they'd created. I straightened myself. Dad barked, "Don't you walk away from me." But I already had. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't make a speech. I just walked toward the hallway, my cheek burning, my shoulder throbbing, their voices chasing behind me. Natalie called out, "So, you're just leaving? You're seriously abandoning family?" I stopped at the coat rack, turned back, and said in a calm, flat voice, "You chose the wrong day to show everyone who you really are." Mom's smile faltered, Dad's eyes narrowed, Natalie's arms dropped to her sides. Because they knew, for the first time in my life, everyone in that room saw the truth. And this time, I wasn't going to let them bury it. I left the house with the cold November air slicing across my face, the echoes of their rage still inside. But I didn't feel powerless, not anymore. Something had shifted in me, and I already knew. Thanksgiving was only the beginning. The next morning, my cheek was still swollen where Mom slapped me, and my shoulder ached from where Dad shoved me into the wall. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, the bruising already forming under the skin, thinking about how they had dragged me back into the same nightmare I'd been escaping for years. I kept hearing Mom's voice, sharp and echoing, "Pay your sister's rent or get out." And the way everyone at the table stared, shocked but silent, like they were waiting for someone else to do something. No one did. My phone buzzed for the 10th time. It was Natalie again. "Where is the rent money? Mom said you would send it by morning." Then another. "Stop being dramatic. We all know you can afford it." My jaw tightened. Natalie earned enough to afford rent. She just didn't want to. Why bother when she had parents willing to bully another child into paying for her life? A few minutes later, Mom called. I let it ring the first time, the second time, the third time. Finally, I answered because I wanted to hear just how far they were willing to go. "You embarrassed us last night," Mom snapped, skipping any greeting. "You are going to fix it by sending your sister the money, and you're going to apologize for your attitude." I stared at my reflection, at the bruise under my eye. "I'm not apologizing for anything." Dad's voice thundered from behind her. "You owe us respect." "No," I said quietly. "I don't owe you anything." There was a shocked silence. I had never spoken like that before. Not to them. Mom recovered quickly. "If you don't pay, we'll tell the family you attacked us last night. You know how they take our side. Don't make this harder on yourself." There it was. The threat. The manipulation. The same weapon they had used my entire life. Reputation. Not truth. Not love. Not fairness. Reputation. They didn't care what they had done to me. They cared who knew. That was their weak spot, their Achilles heel. And Aunt Linda proved it hours later when she called me, voice trembling. I saw everything, Erica. I'm so sorry. Your parents already started telling people you had a breakdown. But if you need me to say what I saw, I'll do it. My breath hitched. Linda never took sides in anything, but she was there. She saw my father shove me. She saw my mother slap me so hard the room froze. And now, they were terrified she might talk. That fear, that panic, that was the first crack I needed. Then the second crack came unexpectedly. A text from my cousin Paige. What your parents did was messed up. They're telling people you lost control, but we all saw the opposite. If you need statements from us, we're here. Statements. Plural. Slowly, the fear I had carried since childhood began evaporating. For the first time, I realized something earth-shaking. This time, I wasn't the only witness. This time, they couldn't twist the story. This time, the room saw the truth. And my parents weren't ready for that. By evening, Dad sent another message. Let's talk calmly. We can fix this. Just send the money first. Fix it? No, I wasn't fixing anything. I was finally holding them accountable, and I knew exactly how to do it. Not with silence, not with poetic symbolism, not with forgiveness, but with consequences, real, tangible consequences. And Thanksgiving would not be the last time my family saw who my parents truly were. It was only the spark. Now, it was time for the fire. I didn't answer any more of their calls after that. Not Dad's fake calm-down messages, not Mom's guilt-drenched rants, not Natalie's entitled demands for rent money. I let them scream into the void while I quietly gathered everything they never expected me to have. Witnesses, screenshots, truth, and finally, support. The next morning, Aunt Linda showed up at my apartment with a travel mug of coffee and a binder in her hands. Yes, she said before I even opened my mouth. I wrote a statement, and so did 3 others. She handed me the binder. Inside were 4 typed letters. Hers, Paige's, my Uncle Rob's, and even Mrs. Harker from next door, who'd been standing by the kitchen doorway when my father shoved me. Each letter described exactly what they saw. The shove, the slap, the screaming, the demand for money, the threats, the humiliation. I felt my throat tighten. I wasn't used to people choosing me. I wasn't used to being believed. Linda squeezed my hand. Your parents' biggest fear is losing control of the story. They've controlled it for decades. It's your turn now. My turn. She was right. My parents weren't afraid of hurting me. They weren't afraid of the truth. They were terrified of family judgment, the same weapon they'd used to beat me down my entire life. And Thanksgiving had given me the perfect angle. That night, the entire extended family was invited to another Thanksgiving weekend dinner hosted by my Aunt Dorothy. Normally, I avoided these gatherings, but this time, I went. When I arrived, conversation stopped. My bruised cheek spoke louder than words. People looked at me like they finally saw the ghost that had been screaming behind my eyes for years. Mom's face drained the moment she saw me. Dad's jaw clenched. Natalie stiffened like she was bracing for impact. Mom rushed toward me. Don't start anything here. Me? I said calmly. I'm not starting anything. I walked right past her and placed the binder onto the center of the dining table next to the turkey. The room went silent. Dad's voice trembled. What is that? I met his eyes. The truth. Dorothy, never one to hold back, opened the binder. Her eyes widened. So all of this happened? In my sister's house? On Thanksgiving? Mom lunged toward the table. This is exaggerated. No, Dorothy said firmly, lifting the pages. These were written by people who have no reason to lie, and we all saw your daughter's bruises. Natalie tried to laugh it off. Come on, it wasn't that serious. Uncle Rob stood up. Enough. We watched your parents assault their daughter because she wouldn't pay your bills. Paige chimed in. They hit her, they screamed at her, they humiliated her, and you benefited from all of it. Natalie's face slowly crumpled. Dad pointed at me, rage shaking his voice. "You're turning the family against us!" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. "You did that yourself," I said. Mom tried to recover, plastering on a brittle smile. "We were disciplining her. She overreacted." Dorothy slammed the binder shut. "You laid your hands on a grown woman over rent money. That's abuse, not discipline." Someone muttered, "I can't believe they did that." Another said, "This is beyond wrong." My parents finally felt it. The shift, the shame, the loss of control. Their faces paled exactly the way they had made hundreds of mine pale over the years. Mom reached out to me, voice cracking. "Sweetheart, let's talk privately." "No." I stepped back from her hand like it was fire. "No more private conversations. No more isolated rooms where you make me feel like I'm imagining everything." Dad tried next. "Just sit with us. We can fix this." "You can't," I said. "You didn't break me in private. You don't get to fix me in private." The room buzzed with whispers. They were losing their audience, the one they counted on to worship them. Natalie's voice came out tiny. "So, are you still paying my rent?" I looked at her like she was speaking a different language. "Never again." Her lips trembled. But I can't afford." "That's not my problem. It never was." Mom swayed slightly like someone had kicked the legs from under her. "You're really doing this to family?" "You did this," I said. "I just stopped covering for you." Then the final blow came, not from me, but from Aunt Linda. She stood and said loudly, "Until you two get help and apologize genuinely, without lies, without excuses, you are not welcome at any more family gatherings." Gasps, whispers, shock. That was worse than any physical wound for my parents, worse than any consequence I could have imagined. They were exiled from the very spotlight they lived for. Dad's voice cracked. "You can't be serious." But she was. Everyone nodded. Every person they tried to impress. Every relative they used as props. Every witness whose silence they relied on. No more. Mom stepped toward me again, desperate now. "Erica, please don't do this. We can talk. We can fix last night. Just don't let them—" I stepped back a final time. "This isn't revenge," I said quietly. "This is accountability." And for the first time in 30 years, they understood the difference. I turned and walked out of the room, hearing them beg behind me, not with dominance, not with superiority, but with fear. Real, human fear. The door closed behind me, and the cold air filled my lungs like freedom finally had a temperature. Thanksgiving had started with them beating me in front of everyone. It ended with the entire family watching them fall on their knees. And for once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel weak. I felt done. Completely, permanently done. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.